The Remington family thought they had bought a silent, obedient doll when their heir, Alaric, married the daughter of a bankrupt grocer. For 3 years they mocked her cheap shoes, laughed at her silence, and called her the charity case of the Upper East Side, but they didn't know that while they were busy spending millions, she was busy making billions. When the Remington Empire faced a hostile takeover and the board gathered to surrender, the doors didn't open for a savior. They opened for the wife they had all despised, and this time she wasn't serving the coffee. She was firing the board. This is the story of how the poor housewife became the boss. The crystal chandeliers of the Pierre Hotel's grand ballroom hummed with the kind of electric silence that only money can buy. It was the annual Remington Foundation Gala, a night where New York's old money gathered to congratulate themselves on being rich. Vanessa stood by the dessert table, nursing a glass of sparkling water. She wore a simple navy dress she had bought off the rack at Macy's 3 years ago. It was clean, elegant, and hopelessly out of place in a sea of custom Vera Wang and vintage Chanel. "Careful, darling." A sharp voice sliced through the air. "You wouldn't want to stain that, whatever it is. Polyester doesn't breathe, you know." Vanessa didn't need to turn around to know it was Catherine Remington, her mother-in-law and the matriarch of the Remington shipping dynasty. Catherine was a woman who wore diamonds like armor and treated kindness like a weakness. "It's a blend, Catherine," Vanessa said softly, turning to face the older woman. "And I'm quite comfortable, thank you." Catherine laughed, a brittle sound that drew the attention of the nearby guests' wives of hedge fund managers and daughters of senators. "Comfortable? Oh, Vanessa, you always aim so low." That's the problem with your background. You think comfortable is a virtue. In this family, we aim for exceptional. Alaric, Vanessa's husband, drifted over, a scotch in hand. He was handsome in that classically bored Ivy League way, or sharp jawline and heavy inheritance. He glanced at his mother, then at his wife. He didn't defend her. He never did. "Mother, leave her be," Alaric sighed, checking his Rolex. "She's trying her best." "Is she?" Catherine sneered, stepping closer. 3 years, Alaric. 3 years, and she still looks like she wandered in from the servants' entrance. The board members are asking questions, you know. They wonder why the heir to the Remington fortune is married to a woman whose father couldn't even keep a corner store open. Vanessa's grip tightened on her glass. Her father had been a good man. A hard-working grocer in Queens who lost everything when the supermarket chains moved in during the 2008 recession. He had died of a heart attack 2 years later, leaving Vanessa with nothing but debt and a brilliant, terrifying mind for numbers that no one in this room knew about. "I'll go check on the seating arrangements," Vanessa whispered, needing to escape. "You do that?" Catherine waved her hand dismissively. "Make yourself useful. Since you can't contribute to the family trust, you might as well act like the help." Vanessa walked away, her heels clicking on the marble floor. She could feel the eyes burning into her back. The whispers were audible, tailored to be heard. Poor thing. Alaric must be so embarrassed. "I heard she clips coupons. Why hasn't he divorced her yet? The prenup is ironclad." Vanessa pushed through the heavy double doors into the cool hallway. She leaned against the wall, taking a deep breath. To them, she was Vanessa the poor wife. Vanessa the mistake. She pulled her phone from her clutch. It wasn't the latest iPhone the other wives flaunted. It was an older model with a cracked screen. But the app she opened wasn't Instagram or TikTok. It was a secure, encrypted terminal connected to the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. A message flashed on the screen. "Proschet Feinguard, Exquisisten Phase 4 complete. Awaiting final, signal." Vanessa's thumb hovered over the screen. Her eyes, usually cast down in submission, were now cold and calculating. "Not yet," she whispered to herself. "Let them laugh a little longer." She put the phone away and composed her face into the mask of the submissive wife. She wasn't just surviving the Remingtons. She was studying them. She knew their debt-to-equity ratios better than their CFO. She knew Alaric was leveraging the family's shipping containers to cover bad crypto bets. She knew Catherine was skimming from the charity fund to pay for her lover's apartment in Paris. She knew it all because she wasn't just reading their financial reports. She was buying their debt. Inside the ballroom, the music swelled. Alaric was laughing with a group of investors from Goldman Sachs, unaware that the woman he treated like furniture effectively owned 4% of his company's outstanding loans. The doors opened again, and a tall man in a sharp grey suit walked out. It was Sebastian Thorne, the Remingtons' fierce rival. He ran Thorne Logistics, a predatory firm that had been eating away at the Remington market share for a decade. "Hiding from the sharks, Mrs. Remington?" Sebastian asked, his voice smooth but dangerous. "Just getting some air, Mr. Thorne." "Mr. Thorne," Vanessa replied, keeping her head down. Sebastian chuckled. "You know, I almost feel sorry for you. They treat you like a stray dog they forgot to feed. If you ever get tired of the scraps, let me know. I need a new receptionist." He tossed a business card at her. It landed on the floor near her feet. He didn't wait for her to pick it up. He just walked away, laughing. Vanessa looked at the card on the floor. Thorne Logistics. She didn't pick it up. Instead, she stepped on it, grinding it into the carpet with her heel. "I don't want a job, Sebastian," she murmured. "I want your portfolio." She smoothed her dress and walked back into the party. The humiliation was fuel. Every insult was a deposit in a bank account they didn't know existed, and the bill was coming due. The crisis hit 3 months later, on a rainy Tuesday in November. It started with a rumor on the Bloomberg terminals, a short squeeze on Remington Shipping, RMSH. By 10 a.m., the stock had plummeted 14%. By noon, it was down 30%. In the Remington family mansion on Fifth Avenue, the atmosphere was funereal. Alaric was pacing the library, his tie undone, sweat beading on his forehead. Catherine sat on the velvet sofa, clutching a gin and tonic, her face pale. "It's a coordinated attack." Alaric shouted into his phone. "Someone is dumping millions of shares. Who is it? BlackRock, State Street. Find out." He slammed the phone down. "They don't know. It's a ghost firm. A shell company registered in the Cayman Islands called Valkyrie Holdings. They've been quietly accumulating our debt for 2 years, and now they're calling it in." "What does that mean, Alaric?" Catherine snapped. "Speak plain English." "It means we're broke, Mother," Alaric screamed, his voice cracking. "They triggered a liquidity clause. We have to pay back $400 million by Friday, or they seize the ships, they seize the warehouses, they seize the house." Vanessa sat in the corner of the library knitting a scarf. She didn't look up. The rhythm of her needles was steady. Click, click, click. "Can't you stop that infernal clicking?" Catherine hissed at her. "Our lives are falling apart and you're knitting. Do you even understand what $400 million is? It's more money than your entire wretched family earned in 10 generations." Vanessa paused. She looked at the scarf a deep blood red. "I understand debt, Catherine. My father died because of it. It's a very simple concept. You borrowed money. You didn't have to impress people you don't like. Now the bill is here." Alaric stared at her, stunned. It was the most she had spoken in months. "Vanessa, please. Not now. I need to call Sebastian Thorne. He's the only one with enough capital to bail us out." "Thorne?" Catherine gasped. "He'll eat us alive. He'll strip the company for parts. We have no choice." Alaric dialed the number. Vanessa went back to knitting. She knew exactly what Sebastian Thorne would say. She knew because she had read the dossier on Thorne's liquidity yesterday. He didn't have the cash. He was over-leveraged on real estate in Dubai. He couldn't save them even if he wanted to. Alaric put the phone on speaker. "Sebastian." "It's Alaric. Look, we're in a bit of a bind." Sebastian's laughter crackled through the speaker. "A bind? Alaric, you're not in a bind. You're in a coffin. I saw the ticker. Remington is trading at junk status. I need a bridge loan. I'll give you the European routes." "I don't want your routes, Alaric." I want to watch you burn. Besides, I couldn't help you if I wanted to. The market is spooked. No one is touching shipping stocks today. Good luck, old friend." The line went dead. Alaric sank into his chair, defeated. The room went silent, save for the ticking of the grandfather clock and the rain lashing against the windows. Then the butler, Jenkins, cleared his throat from the doorway. "Sir? Madam? A letter has just arrived by courier. It's marked urgent. Board of Directors." Alaric snatched the envelope. He tore it open, his hands shaking. He scanned the document, his eyes widening in horror. "What is it?" Catherine demanded. It's a notice for an emergency board meeting," Alaric stammered. "Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., at the headquarters." "Who called the meeting?" Catherine asked. "You're the chairman. Only you can call an emergency meeting." Alaric looked up, his face ghostly white. "It wasn't called by the chairman. It was called by the majority shareholder." "But we are the majority shareholders," Catherine shrieked. "We own 51%. "Not anymore," Alaric whispered, dropping the paper. "According to this, Valkyrie Holdings just converted their debt into equity. As of this morning, they own 60% of Remington Shipping. They own the company." Catherine grabbed the letter. "Who is behind Valkyrie? Who is doing this to us?" "It doesn't say," Alaric said, "but the letter says the new CEO will introduce themselves at the meeting tomorrow, and they are demanding our resignations." Vanessa stood up. She carefully folded her knitting and placed it in her bag. "Where are you going?" Alaric asked, his voice weak. "To bed," Vanessa said calmly. "You have a big day tomorrow, Alaric. You should get some rest. You want to look your best when you meet your new boss." "How can you be so calm?" Catherine spat. "You're going to be on the street too. You'll be back to bagging groceries." Vanessa stopped at the door. She turned, and for a split second a smile ghosted across her lips. It wasn't a nice smile. "I wouldn't worry about me, Catherine," Vanessa said. "I've always been good at budgeting." She walked out of the room, leaving her husband and mother-in-law in the ruins of their dynasty. As she climbed the stairs to her separate bedroom, she took out her phone. She dialed a number saved simply as The Wolf. "It's done," she said into the phone. "The panic has set in. They are broken." "Excellent," a deep voice replied on the other end. "The board is prepped. The press release is drafted." "Are you ready for the reveal, Madam Chairwoman?" Vanessa looked at herself in the hallway mirror. She didn't see the poor, mousy wife anymore. She saw a shark in the water. "I've been ready for 3 years," she said. "Make sure the car is ready at 8 a.m. Make sure the car is ready at 8 a.m. And get me the black suit. The Yves Saint Laurent one, the one you bought in Paris last month." "Yes." "It's time I dressed for the job I actually have." The morning of the hostile takeover broke with the sky the color of a bruised plum. Rain lashed against the tinted windows of the black Mercedes transporting Alaric and Catherine Remington to the financial district. Inside the car, the silence was toxic. Alaric was hyperventilating, clutching a leather portfolio as if it were a life preserver. Catherine was furiously typing on her phone, trying to liquidate assets that were already frozen. "Stop breathing so loudly, Alaric," Catherine snapped without looking up. "You sound like a dying pug. We are Remingtons. We do not panic. We negotiate. Negotiate with who, mother?" Alaric's voice was high and thin. "We don't even know who walked through the door. Valkyrie Holdings is a ghost. For all we know, it's the cartel or the Russians or Elon Musk. It doesn't matter who they are." Catherine adjusted her pearl necklace, checking her reflection in the rearview mirror. "They want the company. They need us to run it. No one knows the shipping lanes like we do. We'll offer them a seat on the board, maybe 10% equity, and we'll stay in control. It's a standard power play." The car pulled up to the curb of the Remington Tower. Usually, the doorman, Henry, would be there with an umbrella and a smile. Today, Henry was nowhere to be seen. The sidewalk was empty. "Where is everyone?" Alaric muttered as they exited the car, the rain instantly soaking his Italian wool suit. They pushed through the revolving doors into the lobby. The atmosphere was wrong. The receptionist, usually glued to a phone, was standing at attention, looking pale. Security guards were stationed by the elevators. New guards, men with thick necks and earpieces who didn't look like they were hired from a local agency. "Good morning, Mr. Remington," the head of security said, stepping in front of the elevator bank. He didn't smile. "Badges, please," tapping in front of the elevator bank. He didn't smile. "Badges, please, badges," Catherine scoffed, shaking her wet umbrella. "I am Catherine Remington. My name is on the building. Get out of my way." "New protocol, ma'am," the guard said, his voice like gravel. "Everyone needs a badge. Or an escort." Catherine's face turned a shade of violent red. "I will have your job for this. Do you know who I am?" "Let it go, mother," Alaric whispered, terrified. He pulled out his ID card. The guard scanned it. A red light beeped. Hasty Sestini. "There must be a glitch," Alaric stammered. "No glitch," the guard said. "You've been flagged as visitor. You need a temporary pass." He handed them 2 plastic clips, the kind given to interns and delivery boys. Humiliated, Catherine snatched the pass and pinned it to her Chanel jacket. "When I find out who is responsible for this, I will make sure they never work in this city again." They rode the elevator to the 45th floor in silence. The numbers ticked up, 20, 30, 40. With every floor, the weight of the impending doom pressed harder on Alaric's chest. When the doors opened, the executive floor was eerily quiet. The cubicles were empty. The phones weren't ringing. "Where is the staff?" Alaric asked. "In the conference hall," a voice answered. It was Alfred Pendleton, the company's CFO and Alaric's godfather. He looked aged, his skin grey. The new owners called an all-hands meeting at 8:30. They sent everyone home except the board. "Alfred," Catherine marched up to him. "Who are they? Have you seen them?" "I saw the lawyers," Alfred whispered, looking over his shoulder. "Sharks, Catherine. The firm is Kravitz and Moore. They specialize in aggressive restructuring. They're in the boardroom now. They're waiting for you. Let them wait." Catherine straightened her spine. "Come, Alaric. Chin up. Remember, we own the room." They walked down the long mahogany hallway, past the portraits of Alaric's father and grandfather. The eyes of the ancestors seemed to judge them. Alaric pushed open the heavy double doors of the boardroom. The room was freezing. The air conditioning was blasted to the max. Seated around the long oval table were the 6 other board members, looking like schoolchildren called to the principal's office. At the far end of the table, the chairman's seat, sat a man in a dark suit. He was young, sharp-featured, with cold eyes. This was James Lawson, the lead attorney for Valkyrie Holdings. Standing behind him were 3 assistants with laptops. "You're in my seat," Alaric said, trying to summon authority. "Not anymore, Mr. Remington." James Lawson didn't stand up. "Take a seat on the side. We have a lot to get through." Catherine slammed her hand on the table. "This is a hostile takeover. We have rights. We demand to see the principal owner of Valkyrie Holdings immediately. I refuse to speak to a lawyer." James Lawson smiled. It was a terrifying, reptilian smile. "You're in luck, Mrs. Remington. The CEO insisted on being here personally to accept your surrender." "Surrender?" Catherine laughed nervously. "We are here to negotiate." "There is no negotiation." James checked his watch. "The CEO will be here in 10 seconds. The heavy doors opened again. Alaric turned, expecting a titan of industry. Maybe Warren Buffett, maybe a tech billionaire from Silicon Valley. Instead, a woman walked in. She was wearing a black Yves Saint Laurent power suit, tailored to perfection. Her heels were sharp stilettos that clicked rhythmically on the hardwood floor, sound of impending judgment. Her hair, usually tied back in a messy bun, was blown out in sleek, glossy waves. She wore oversized, dark sunglasses. She carried a take-out coffee cup in one hand and a thick leather folder in the other. Catherine squinted. The silhouette looked familiar, but the energy was wrong. This woman radiated power. She occupied the space like a predator entering a cage of rabbits. The woman walked past Alaric. She walked past Catherine. She didn't look at them. "Excuse me," Catherine barked. "We are in a private meeting. The coffee girl is supposed to leave the tray in the lobby." The woman stopped at the head of the table, right next to James Lawson. James immediately stood up and pulled out the chairman's chair for her. "Coffee girl," the woman repeated. Her voice was low, smooth, and unmistakable. She took off her sunglasses and tossed them onto the mahogany table. Alaric gasped. The sound was like a balloon popping in the silence. It was Vanessa, but it wasn't the Vanessa he knew. The timid eyes were gone, replaced by steel. The slumped shoulders were gone. She looked at him with an expression of absolute, terrifying indifference. "Hello, Alaric," she said. "Hello, Catherine." "Vanessa." Catherine's jaw dropped. "What are you doing here? Did you bring Alaric's lunch? Get out. You're embarrassing us." "I think there's a misunderstanding," Vanessa said calmly. She sat down in the chairman's chair. She took a sip of her coffee. "I didn't bring lunch, and I'm not the coffee girl." She placed the leather folder on the table and opened it. "I'm the CEO of Valkyrie Holdings," Vanessa said, her voice echoing in the silent room. "And I'm the new owner of Remington Shipping." For a full 10 seconds, the only sound in the room was the hum of the hard drive in Alfred Pendleton's laptop. Then Catherine Remington began to laugh. It was a hysterical, screeching sound. "You?" She pointed a manicured finger at Vanessa. "You? The grocer's daughter? Oh, this is rich. This is a prank, right? Alaric, did you put her up to this? Is this some sort of sick therapy role play?" Vanessa didn't smile. She didn't blink. She simply tapped a key on the laptop in front of her. The massive screen behind her flickered to life. It displayed a complex web of financial transactions, wire transfers, and shell company registrations. "James," Vanessa said softly, "please walk the former board members through the acquisition structure." James Lawson stepped forward. "Certainly, Madam CEO. 3 years ago, Mrs. Vanessa Remington began using her personal inheritance, a small but significant sum left by her late grandmother, that you, Alaric, didn't know about because you never asked to invest in high-risk cryptocurrency futures. She turned $50,000 into $12 million in 6 months." Alaric's face went white. You had $12 million? And you let me beg my mother for allowance?" "I wasn't done," Vanessa interrupted. "Proceed, James." "Using that capital, James, Mrs. Remington formed Valkyrie Holdings. She noticed that Remington Shipping was bleeding cash due to mismanagement. Specifically, she noticed that someone was siphoning maintenance funds into offshore accounts." James clicked a button. A spreadsheet appeared. It showed millions of dollars moving from the company's ship maintenance fund into an account in the Cayman Islands named Queen Catherine LLC. The board members gasped. All eyes turned to Catherine. "That's a lie," Catherine shrieked, clutching her pearls. "That's accounting errors. It's embezzlement, Catherine," Vanessa said, her voice cutting through the air like a knife. "I've been tracking it for 2 years. Every time you insulted my shoes, I bought another chunk of your debt. Every time you told me I was worthless, I shorted your stock. And when you decided to leverage the entire company fleet to cover Alaric's gambling debts last month, well, that was the final nail." Vanessa stood up. She walked slowly around the table, trailing her hand along the backs of the leather chairs. "I know everything," she said. "I know about the bribes paid to the Port Authority in Jersey. I know about the safety inspections you faked on the SS Alaric. I know that this company is technically insolvent." She stopped behind Alfred Pendleton, the CFO. "Alfred," she said gently, "you signed off on those audits. You knew Catherine was stealing." Alfred trembled. I had no choice. She threatened my pension." "You always have a choice," Vanessa said cold. "You're fired. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out." 2 guards stepped forward and lifted the weeping old man out of his chair. They dragged him from the room. The remaining board members were petrified. They looked at Vanessa not as a housewife, but as an executioner. Now, Vanessa turned her gaze to her husband. Alaric was slumped in his chair, looking small and broken. Vanessa, why? Why didn't you tell me? We could have fixed this together. Together. Vanessa laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Alaric, for 3 years you treated me like a decorative plant. You watched your mother humiliate me daily and said nothing. You didn't want a partner. You wanted a prop. Well, the prop has a 60% controlling interest now. We are married, Alaric pleaded. What's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine. Actually, Vanessa signaled James again. The prenuptial agreement your mother forced me to sign was very specific. It stated that all assets acquired during the marriage by individual effort remain separate property. You insisted on it to protect your trust fund. Ironically, it now protects my billions from you. Catherine stood up, her face twisted in rage. She grabbed a heavy crystal water pitcher from the table. You ungrateful little gutter rat. I took you in. I gave you a home. She lunged at Vanessa. Vanessa didn't flinch. She didn't need to. Before Catherine could get within 3 feet, the head of security intercepted her, grabbing her wrist and twisting the pitcher out of her hand. It shattered on the floor. Get your hands off me, Catherine screamed. Catherine Remington, Vanessa said, her voice booming with authority. Sit down. Catherine, shocked by the command, slumped back into her chair. You are removed from the board, Vanessa declared. You are stripped of your title as honorary chairwoman. And because I am generous, I am not sending this file to the FBI today. I am giving you 24 hours to vacate the Fifth Avenue mansion. The mansion, Catherine whispered, but that's the family home. It's been in the Remington name for 100 years. And now it belongs to Valkyrie Holdings to cover the liquidity gap, Vanessa said. I'm turning it into a shelter for displaced families. I think the irony is fitting. Vanessa looked around the table at the remaining board members. Gentlemen, she said, you have 2 choices. You can resign now and keep your stock options, or you can stay and work for me. But if you stay, things change. No more 3-hour lunches. No more corporate jets for golf trips. We are going to turn this company around, and we are going to do it by actually working. She looked at the clock. The market opens in 5 minutes. I have a press conference in the lobby at 10 a.m. to announce the restructuring. Alaric, Catherine, you're not invited. Vanessa turned her back on them and walked back to the head of the table. She sat down and opened her laptop, instantly dismissing them from her existence. Security, she said without looking up. Clear the room of non-essential personnel. The guards stepped toward Alaric and Catherine. Vanessa, please. Alaric cried as the guard grabbed his arm. Where am I supposed to go? I have no access to my accounts. Vanessa paused typing. I have no access to my accounts. Vanessa paused typing. She looked up, her eyes softening just a fraction, not with love, but with pity. I heard Thorne Logistics is hiring, she said. Sebastian Thorne told me he needs a new receptionist. You should give him a call. As Alaric and Catherine were dragged out of the boardroom, shouting and crying, Vanessa didn't watch them go. She was already on the phone with the Tokyo office, speaking fluent Japanese, another skill she had hidden from them. Moshi Moshi, she said into the phone. Yes, this is Vanessa. Start the ships. The door slammed shut, sealing the past behind her. The poor wife was dead. Madam CEO had arrived. But the war wasn't over. As Vanessa looked out the window at the rainy skyline, her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. It wasn't a congratulation. You played a good hand, Vanessa, but you forgot one thing. The debt you bought came with baggage. See you soon. Vanessa frowned. She traced the number. It originated from a satellite phone. She had taken the crown, but she had also painted a target on her back, and the person aiming at her wasn't Alaric or Catherine. It was someone much more dangerous. The first week of Vanessa's reign was a bloodbath, but of the corporate kind. She fired 40% of middle management, renegotiated the fuel contracts, and sold the company's private jet a Gulfstream 6 fix. that Catherine had used to fly her poodles to Miami. The stock price of Remington Shipping, now trading under the ticker VAL-K, stabilized. The business press called her the Iron Housewife. Forbes requested an interview. She declined. She didn't have time for fame. She was too busy hunting a ghost. The mysterious text message gnawed at her. The debt you bought came with baggage. Late one Thursday night, Vanessa was alone in the CEO's office. The city lights of Manhattan sprawled below her, a grid of gold and darkness. She was poring over the manifest logs of the SS Orion, a massive container ship currently docked in Hamburg. According to the official logs, the Orion was carrying German automotive parts bound for Newark. But Vanessa's algorithm, the one she had built on her cracked laptop in her bedroom, flagged a weight discrepancy. The ship was riding too low for auto parts. It was heavier by 3 tons. She picked up the phone and dialed the harbor master in Hamburg. "This is Vanessa Remington. I want container 404 4X opened. Now." "Madam," the German harbor master hesitated. "That container is marked diplomatic cargo. It is sealed under the authority of the Geneva Convention. We cannot open it without a warrant." "Diplomatic cargo." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. Remington Shipping didn't have government contracts. Who signed the manifest? "It is authorized by a Mr. Stephen Reed." Vanessa froze. She knew that name. Stephen Reed wasn't a diplomat. He was a fixer for the ultra-wealthy, a man who existed in the gray zones of international law. If the Remingtons were in bed with Stephen Reed, they weren't just incompetent, they were criminals. "Hold the ship," Vanessa ordered. "If that ship leaves the dock, you're fired." She slammed the phone down. Immediately her office line rang. She stared at it. It was 2 a.m. She answered on speaker. "Who is this?" "You're poking bears, Vanessa," a smooth, cultured voice said. It wasn't Stephen Reed. It was someone younger. "The container stays closed. Tell me what's in it," Vanessa demanded. "Let's just say it's the reason your husband's family stayed afloat for so long. The shipping fees for that special cargo paid the mortgage on the Fifth Avenue mansion. You stop that shipment, you stop the revenue, and if you stop the revenue, my employers get upset." "I don't care about your employers," Vanessa said, her voice shaking slightly but holding firm. "I run a legitimate business. I'm calling Interpol." The voice laughed. "Interpol." The voice laughed. "Interpol?" "Vanessa, look out your window." Vanessa turned to the floor-to-ceiling glass. Across the street, on the roof of the adjacent skyscraper, a red laser dot flickered. It traced a line across the rain-slicked glass and landed squarely on her chest. "We can reach you anywhere," the voice said. "Let the Orion go, or the next shareholder meeting will be your funeral." The line went dead. Vanessa dropped to the floor, crawling behind the heavy oak desk. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This wasn't numbers on a screen anymore. This was real. She realized then that Catherine and Alaric weren't just spending money recklessly. They were being blackmailed or bribed into turning a blind eye to smuggling. They were useful idiots. And now, she had cut the puppet strings, leaving the puppet masters exposed. She needed backup. But who? The police would take too long, and her private security was hired by the old board. She couldn't trust them. She pulled out her phone and dialed the one person who hated the Remingtons as much as she did. Sebastian Thorne. The voice on the other end answered, sounding groggy. "It's 2 a.m. If you're calling to brag about your stock price, I'm hanging up." "I need help," Vanessa said, her voice breathless. "They're using my ships for smuggling, and there is a sniper aiming at my office." There was a pause. The playful arrogance vanished from Sebastian's voice. "Get away from the window. Turn off the lights. I'm 10 minutes away." "Why would you help me?" "Because," Sebastian growled, the sound of a car engine roaring to life in the background. "I want to beat you in the market, Vanessa. I don't want to see you dead." Stay down. 3 days later, the SS Orion was seized by German authorities. Inside the container were not auto parts, but $50 million worth of conflict gold bars, illegally mined in Central Africa and laundered through shell companies. The scandal was instant. Remington, shipping tied to gold smuggling. Rin, the headlines screamed. But Vanessa was ahead of the narrative. She held a press conference, standing side by side with the federal prosecutor. She claimed full credit for uncovering the corruption of the previous administration and pledged full cooperation. She spun the disaster into a victory for transparency. The stock dipped, then soared. She was untouchable. Or so she thought. Vanessa was staying in a secure penthouse suite at the St. Regis, arranged by Sebastian Thorne's security team. She hadn't slept in 48 hours. There was a knock at the door. Her bodyguard, a massive ex-Marine named Cole, checked the peephole. "It's your husband, ma'am. He looks rough." Vanessa hesitated. "Let him in, but search him first." Alaric stumbled into the room. He looked like a ghost of his former self. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his face unshaven, his eyes bloodshot. He smelled of cheap whiskey and desperation. "Vanessa," he rasped, falling to his knees on the plush carpet. "Oh God, Vanessa, I'm so sorry." Vanessa stood by the fireplace, arms crossed. "Get up, Alaric. You're ruining the carpet. I didn't know." Alaric sobbed. "I swear I didn't know about the gold. Mother handled the special contracts. She told me it was just tax-free luxury goods. I thought we were smuggling handbags, not blood gold." "Ignorance isn't a defense, Alaric," Vanessa said coldly. "It's just another form of guilt." I know," he wept. "I'm a coward." "I'm a coward. I've always been a coward. But I'm here to warn you. Stephen Reed. He contacted me." Vanessa stiffened. "What did he say?" "He wants a meeting. He says he can make this all go away. He has evidence that implicates you, Vanessa. He faked emails coming from your IP address. He's going to frame you as the mastermind unless you meet him." "Where?" "The old shipyard in Brooklyn. Tonight. Alone." "It's a trap, Cole," the bodyguard rumbled. "I know it's a trap." Cole, the bodyguard, rumbled. "I know it's a trap," Alaric cried. "That's why I came." "Don't go, Vanessa. Run. Leave the company. Give it back to them. It's not worth your life." Vanessa looked at her husband. For the first time in years, she saw something genuine in his eyes. Fear. Concern. He was weak, yes. Pathetic, yes. Pathetic, yes. But he seemed truly terrified for her. She walked over to him and placed a hand on his shoulder. He flinched, then leaned into her touch, sobbing. "You really want to help me, Alaric?" she asked softly. "Yes. Anything. I love you, Vanessa. I never showed it, but I do." "Okay," she whispered. "Then tell me. Why is there a recording device taped to your chest?" Alaric froze. His weeping stopped instantly. The room went deadly silent. Vanessa ripped his shirt open. Taped to his sternum was a thin black wire and a small transmitter. She stepped back, her face a mask of disgust. "You didn't come to warn me. You came to get me to confess to something. You're wearing a wire for them." Alaric scrambled back, his face twisting from sorrow to panic. "They have Mother. Stephen has Catherine. He said if I didn't get you to admit to the smuggling on tape, he'd kill her. Vanessa, please, you have to understand." "I understand perfectly," Vanessa said. Her voice was devoid of emotion. "You are exactly who I thought you were. You'd sell me out to save the woman who made both our lives miserable." She turned to Cole. "Throw him out." "Vanessa, wait!" Alaric screamed as Cole dragged him toward the door. "The meeting isn't a trap. It's an ambush. They're not going to negotiate. They're going to blow up the shipyard with you in it. Don't go." The door slammed shut, silencing his screams. Vanessa walked to the window. She was shaking, but not from fear. From rage. "He's right about one thing," she said to the empty room. "Stephen Reed is at the shipyard." She pulled out her phone and dialed Sebastian Thorne. "Sebastian," she said, "you asked me once if I wanted to merge our companies." "I was joking," Sebastian replied instantly. "Mostly." "I'm not," Vanessa said. "Mostly?" "Not," Vanessa said. "I'm willing to give you 49% of Remington shipping, but the price is high. Name it." "I need your ships," Vanessa said. "Not for cargo. I need them to create a blockade." "A blockade? Where?" "The Brooklyn Navy Yard," Vanessa said, her eyes cold as steel. "I'm done playing defense. Tonight we go on the offense. I'm going to that meeting." "Vanessa." "That's suicide," Sebastian warned. "No," Vanessa corrected him, pulling her hair back into a tight ponytail. "Suicide is facing me in a boardroom. Facing me in a shipyard. That's just an execution." She grabbed her coat. "Call the police, Sebastian. Tell them to bring a lot of handcuffs. But give me 1 hour. I have a family reunion to attend." The Brooklyn Navy Yard was a graveyard of rusted metal and forgotten industry, shrouded in a thick, freezing fog that seemed to swallow the very light of the moon. Vanessa's town car idled at the security gate, its engine a low, rhythmic hum against the silence of the docks. The driver, a man who had seen much in his 30 years of service but nothing like this, gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles were white. "This is as far as we go, ma'am," he whispered, his voice trembling. "The security cameras were cut 10 minutes ago. It's a dead zone." Vanessa didn't hesitate. She stepped out into the biting wind, her heavy trench coat billowing around her like a dark cape. She wore no jewelry, no diamonds, no reminders of the Remington wealth. She was just Vanessa, the woman who had been forged in the fire of their contempt. The rain had stopped, leaving the air damp and smelling of salt, diesel, and the metallic tang of impending violence. She walked alone toward Warehouse 4B, a massive corrugated steel structure that loomed like a hunched beast. The sliding door was cracked open just enough to spill a slyer of sickly yellow light onto the wet asphalt. Every step she took was a calculated beat. She wasn't afraid. Fear was an emotion for people who still had something to lose. Vanessa had already traded her heart for a kingdom. Inside, the space was cavernous, filled with the echoes of dripping water and the groan of shifting timber. In the center, illuminated by portable floodlights that cast long, distorted shadows, sat Catherine Remington. The sight was jarring. The matriarch of Fifth Avenue, the woman who once claimed that polyester was a sin, was tied to a rusted industrial chair with zip ties. Her silver hair was a bird's nest of tangles. Her makeup was smeared into a grotesque mask of grief, and her custom Chanel suit was ruined by grime and engine oil. Standing over her was a man in a beige overcoat, Stephen Reed. He was leaning against a shipping crate, cleaning his fingernails with a flick knife. He was flanked by 3 armed men, their faces obscured by the shadows of their tactical gear. "I didn't think you'd actually come," Stephen called out, his voice smooth and cultured, echoing off the high steel beams. "The accountant with a hero complex. Holaric said you were cold, but I thought even you might have a sliver of sentimentality for the woman who gave you a roof over your head." Vanessa stopped 20 feet away, her hands buried deep in her coat pockets. She didn't look at Catherine, who was muffled by a heavy gag, her eyes bulging with a mixture of terror and a sudden, desperate hope. "I'm not a hero, Stephen," Vanessa said, her voice steady, cutting through the damp air like a blade. "I'm a pragmatist. You have something that belongs to my company specifically, a massive liability sitting in that chair. I'm here to clean up the mess before the morning shift starts." "The mess?" Stephen laughed, a dry, rattling sound. He walked behind Catherine and pulled the compact semi-automatic from his coat, pressing the cold barrel against her temple. Catherine let out a strangled whimper. "The mess is that you stopped my shipment in Hamburg. You cost my partners $50 million in African gold. Tonight is about debt collection, Vanessa. You see, the Remingtons didn't just borrow money. They borrowed time from people who don't like to wait." He kicked a briefcase toward her. It slid across the floor, stopping inches from her boots. Inside are the release forms, Stephen continued. Transfer the controlling interest of Valkyrie Holdings to a shell corporation I've prepared in Panama. Sign them, and I might let your mother-in-law live. I might even let you walk out of here. Refuse, and the morning news will report a tragic industrial accident to CEO and her mother-in-law, lost to a warehouse fire. Vanessa looked down at the briefcase, then back at Stephen. A small, chilling smile played on her lips. It was the smile of a woman who had played 10,000 games of chess in her head and knew exactly when the king was trapped. You've spent too much time dealing with the Remingtons, Stephen, Vanessa said. You think everyone with $1 billion is a coward. You think I'm here to negotiate for her life. She finally looked at Catherine. Catherine would have let me burn if the roles were reversed. She probably would have supplied the matches. Vanessa! Catherine's muffled voice was a desperate shriek. I'm not signing anything, Vanessa said, her voice dropping an octave. And you're not going to shoot her. Not because you're a good man, but because you're a businessman. And business is about to get very, very bad for you. Is that so? Stephen cocked the hammer of the gun. The metallic click was loud in the silence. Give me one reason why I shouldn't end this right now. Because Vanessa pulled her hand from her pocket, holding her phone. She didn't call for help. She simply tapped a command on a custom app. You forgot to check the manifest of the tugboats I moved into the harbor 2 hours ago. You think you lured me into a trap? Stephen, I've been buying the debt of this very shipyard for 6 months. I own the ground you're standing on. Suddenly, the warehouse was flooded with blinding, artificial white light. The corrugated walls rattled as the heavy thrum of rotors vibrated through the roof. From the skylights above, high-end industrial drones descended, their red and blue lights flickering like angry hornets. They hovered in a perfect semicircle around Stephen and his men. Simultaneously, the riverside doors of the warehouse were kicked open, and the blinding searchlights of 3 massive tugboats bearing the Thorn Logistics logo pierced the gloom, illuminating the interior like a surgical theater. Federal agents, drop your weapons, hands in the air. The command came not from Vanessa, but from a dozen loudspeakers mounted on tactical vehicles that were now crashing through the perimeter fences. Stephen panicked. His cool demeanor shattered. He grabbed Catherine by the hair, holding her up and using her as a human shield. Back off! I'll kill her! I'll blow her brains out right now! Vanessa didn't flinch. She stood amidst the chaos, the wind from the drone rotors whipping her hair across her face. She looked like a vengeful goddess of the digital age. It's over, Stephen, she said. Those drones aren't just for show. They're equipped with thermal imaging and high-fidelity audio. They've been broadcasting this entire debt collection live to a secure server at the FBI's Organized Crime Division. They have your face, your voice, and your confession of the gold smuggling. And the tugboats? They've deployed steel cables across the mouth of the inlet. You aren't leaving by water. You aren't leaving by land. Stephen looked at the surrounding wall of tactical shields, the red laser dots dancing across his chest, and then at Vanessa's cold, unwavering eyes. He realized he wasn't dealing with a housewife. He was dealing with a predator who had spent 3 years learning how to kill without a weapon. Slowly, his hand began to shake. He lowered the gun. With a snarl of defeat, he shoved Catherine forward. She fell hard, her knees hitting the concrete with a sickening crack. This isn't over, Vanessa. Stephen screamed as the SWAT team swarmed him, slamming him into the dirt. You think you can just take over? My partners. They'll come for you. Let them come, Vanessa whispered to the wind. I'll buy them come, Vanessa whispered to the wind. I'll buy them too. She walked past the shouting men and the clicking of handcuffs. She walked straight to Catherine. The older woman was sobbing, her body racking with tremors. The gag had been pulled down, and she was gasping for air. Vanessa, oh, thank God, Catherine wheezed, reaching out a trembling, grime-covered hand to touch Vanessa's coat. I knew you were a Remington at heart. You saved the family. You saved thee. We can fix this. We'll get the lawyers. We'll bury Stephen. We'll go back to the house. Vanessa looked down at her. There was no joy in her eyes, only a profound, icy clarity. She didn't reach down to help Catherine up. She didn't offer a word of comfort. We aren't going back to the house, Catherine, Vanessa said. And we aren't family, we're just two people who happen to share a last name. But as of 5 minutes ago, I filed the paperwork to revert to my maiden name. Catherine blinked, her tears pausing. What? But the scandal. You need me to navigate the social fallout. You need the Remington name. I don't need a name that's synonymous with blood, gold, and embezzlement, Vanessa said. An FBI agent, Special Agent Miller, stepped forward. He wasn't looking at Stephen. He was looking at Catherine. He pulled a pair of heavy steel handcuffs from his belt. Catherine Remington? Miller asked. Yes, she's right here, Vanessa said, stepping aside. Wait, what is this? Catherine shrieked, her voice returning to its shrill, arrogant pitch as Miller pulled her hands behind her back. I'm the victim. I was kidnapped. You were kidnapped by your business partner, Catherine, Vanessa said, her voice echoing one last time in the warehouse. I recovered the encrypted emails from the server you thought you wiped. The ones where you personally negotiated the handling fees for the conflict gold. You didn't just know about the smuggling. You were the one who invited Stephen into our lives. You sold your family's soul for a bigger penthouse. You traitor, Catherine screamed, her face contorting into a mask of pure hatred as she was hoisted up and led toward a waiting police van. I made you. You were nothing, a grocer's brat. Vanessa watched her go. She watched the blue and red lights fade into the New York fog. She felt a weight lift. Not the weight of the company, but the weight of the girl who had spent 3 years trying to be enough for people who were never worth her time. As she walked out of the shipyard, Sebastian Thorne was waiting by his car, a flask of coffee in his hand and a look of genuine impressed amusement on his face. Remind me never to get on your bad side, Sebastian said, handing her a cup. That was thorough. It was just business, Sebastian, Vanessa said, taking a sip. The heat of the coffee felt like the first warm thing she'd felt in years. So, what's the first order of business for the new boss of Vanguard Global? Vanessa looked up at the skyline, where the sun was just beginning to bleed through the gray clouds, a sliver of gold on the horizon. I'm going to go to my father's old grocery store, she said. I'm going to buy the lot. And I'm going to build something that actually matters. She got into the car, leaving the ruins of the Remington Empire behind. The poor wife was gone. The Madam CEO had taken her seat, and the world was finally quiet. And that is how the woman they mocked became the woman they feared. Vanessa didn't just survive the shark tank. She became the shark. It's a brutal reminder that silence isn't always weakness. Sometimes it's just a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. The Remingtons learned the hard way that when you marry for money, you pay a price, but when you underestimate your wife, you lose everything. If you enjoyed this story of revenge, justice, and corporate warfare, please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new story. What would you have done in Vanessa's shoes? Would you have saved Catherine or let her rot? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching and see you in the next story.